Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode number 3 of Salesforce Simplified. I'm your host, Andy Whiteside. I'm the dumb guy that asks all the questions, and I've got Derek Cassese on to enlighten us with the answers. Derek, how's it going?
Oh, it's going well. Going well. A couple days, well, not too long until Halloween. The kids are all, every 4 minutes asking if we can decorate the house. So
Yeah.
good.
You haven't decorated the house yet?
The outside, like
Oh,
they want to like do the whole nine here. So
how old are your kids now?
they're 7.
Okay. Look,
Yeah.
I'm sure every old person like me tells you this. You're going to miss that day. However, it is kind of annoying when you're in it. I say
Yeah.
it's annoying. It's just you're busy. You got stuff to do. Today is October 23rd, 2023. And the blog that you brought, why did you, well, let me read the name of it. How do I get my sales rep to use a CRM? Man, that's like the vein of my existence. It's not supposed to be because I'm beating them up. It's because it's good for them. Let me read a little more here. So this is by Jen Gustavson from February of 2023. It says, our sales ops pros weigh in on the best tactics for boosting CRM adoption without a lot of sales rep nagging. So Derek, why did you pick this blog?
Well, I think it's like extremely relatable to most people. Most people that are using Salesforce, or if you're an end user using Salesforce or a manager, I think you can relate to this article or this topic in one way or another. And it goes, what we're going to get into, I think just goes into, kind of the right and or wrong ways to go about building adoption for your Salesforce and CRM.
Look, when software is implemented right, designed right, built right, marketed right, people should just want to use it. But we all know that's not how it works out a lot of times.
Yeah, and I think also too, I mean, everybody is so busy, right, with day-to-day work, things that you're getting done. We've all got, I was just telling you earlier, I start the day out with 5 things to do, and I end the day with 7 things to do, and it's always busy, busy, busy. So when folks or sales leaders or whatnot ask reps to do, data entry or fill this field out or check this box, it's adding more to do. So I think it's important to understand the why behind why you're being asked.
Yeah, and I think this came from a maybe a community discussion. Is that what
Yeah.
I'm saying? Yeah.
Yeah, it was from a community discussion. And so Ashley Mattis, Senior Director of Sales Ops at Groupon, was the one that this first section was talking to about. This is, essentially, how do we get them to fill out the fields, right? Fields get unfilled, data is not up to date. And what she's kind of saying is you could have like the most amazing Salesforce environment that's up to date, got all kinds of cool automations and this, that, and the other. But if it's not being filled out,
Yeah,
it's useless.
Yeah, or maybe worse, it's getting filled out with bad data or both.
Correct. Yep. And that's, yeah. So it's just that the return on investment is just nil if that's the situation from a data perspective.
I threaten to go back to spreadsheets every once in a while. We just give each customer their own sheet, and you can put whatever garbage you want on there if we don't use the tool correctly. Of course, I would never do that. However, it's fun to kind of threaten it occasionally. Derek, the first section is, why do I need buy-in from my sales reps?
Well, yeah, I mean, and that kind of goes to what we were just talking about, right? Because if there's not buy-in, and what I kind of, they're using the word buy-in, but what I tend to say is, you got to have belief in the system, right? You've got to truly believe in how the data is going to be used from the sales reps, and what that means. And I've been on this side too before I even joined Salesforce. When I worked with Citrix, I had to input data, and I went into like some black box, and I had no idea why it was being asked, and I never saw the reason to it, and so I didn't have buy-in at that point.
Yeah.
So I think it's important that sales leaders and from the top down organizations explain how the data is being used, why it's important, and what the benefit is for the organization and the sales rep is for getting it in there accurately.
Right. Fair to say it's important for the customer, important for the leadership, important for the actual salesperson, potentially most important for the salesperson, even though they may in some tight cases feel like they're the ones, being I don't know, mistreated by having to put all this data in. It's for their own good.
Yeah, I think that yes, but I think there's also an underlying theme in that first little section of this article that's important, and it's like this is never going to be perfect. Like you're going to roll out Salesforce CRM, you're going to have your account record page, your contact, however it's architected, and there's going to be things that just aren't right, and you're going to hit snags, and there's going to be ups and downs. And I think that if you build a partnership, right, within the organization, I think that they will be, they being the sales teams, the sales reps will be much more open to dealing with those snags, as opposed to hitting one snag and being like, I'm done. I'm not using this anymore.
Yeah.
So getting away from that dictatorship concept and being much more of a collaborative environment, I think, is something that would yield much more adoption.
What do you think their quote here? You have to start at the top to be effective at the bottom, and nothing beats finding the right person to deliver the message. What are they trying to say?
Yeah, so I think, and she kind of goes in a little bit on what she means by that, but it's, if you're thinking about top down from an org chart perspective, there has to be effective understanding and buy-in all the way from the top down, and all the way back up in the organization. But also, for example, if I'm a Salesforce admin or an architect or a sales ops individual, me telling the sales reps or a team of sales reps to enter fields is not going to carry the same weight as if it was the sales leader, right? Somebody that they trust, that they're accountable to, that also buys in and explains, why we're doing this and where it's being used, et cetera. And I think that's what is, let's find the right person to deliver the message, so that the takeaway isn't, these are just, techies that want me to click another button type thing.
Right. And I think part of that too is seeing the leadership within an organization actually use the technology for their own benefit. Setting the example goes a long way.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. Next section says, how do I get sales reps to use new tools and processes like a CRM?
Yeah. And what this is, and I brought some of this up actually, here at XenTegra a little bit, because obviously we're going to be adding and always evolving the way that we use Salesforce. And what it's really talking about is, creating kind of like a team of more tenured folks that are, early adopters, if you will, that can kind of help you vet new UI look and feel, new record page layouts, to try to, vet out if you're in the right or wrong direction for how the work is being done, as opposed to just like making a change and then one day somebody comes in and stuff is in a different spot. I'll give you an example. Like I have a habit of always reorganizing our pantry, because it just gets, the kids go in there and stuff gets all over the place. And every time I do that, it's different. And every time I do that, the wife goes in there and can't find stuff. Like right. She just gets so frustrated at me because she doesn't know where anything is. You can't do that in software when everybody's a creature of habit, where you know exactly where stuff is, because now you're being less productive. So having a small team help you with that, I think, is a really good approach at getting the rest of the team right to adopt new processes and new features in CRM.
Yeah. So you're saying having an individual or a really small team go and shuffle things around, even though it makes sense to them, is probably not the approach that helps the team overall.
Yeah, I think the abrupt changes like that are negative. Now, everybody's approach may be different, but that to me feels more like dictatorship. All of a sudden now I've got something new and I didn't really have much of a say, and it doesn't really work with how I work. Whereas if you take a subset of folks in the similar roles, I don't think you would get that approach. Plus, they're going to end up disseminating that information into their teams to the point where maybe they're actually, talking up the features, saying it saved me so much more time. I can actually use my mobile device now to enter notes and this, that, and the other. So that approach, I think, is is what they're kind of getting at as far as trying to be successful with rolling out these new features, updates, even upgrades to the user interface. And when I say user interface, that's just, with Salesforce, you can have 50 fields on an account object and you can put them anywhere, but you can display that many different ways. But if you change the way that it looked every week, people wouldn't know where to go for anything.
Right.
To be careful with that.
So the quote actually has here is, when I first started in this field, there was often a feeling of sales operations versus sales, even though at the end of the day, we all had the same goals. Would you say that's probably pretty much across the industry, across all the industries, and probably pretty normal in most organizations these days still?
I would say, yeah, 100%. And I would, another example of that is, there's a million ways to automate processes within a Salesforce platform to look for incomplete data, if you will, right? Let's just say that there's a account plan that needs to be filled out. Let's say there's meetings that have needed to be scheduled. All that stuff could be scheduled, and alerts could be given, and notifications could be sent. And, it's kind of like the man watching the man. And it's just like all these notifications, and that would be like sales ops versus sales. It'd be like, look, I'm doing the best I can. I don't need to be bombarded left and right. But the reason that the folks spend a lot of time implementing those things are to try to surface them to make the sales team's life easier. So everybody is trying to achieve the same goal, but it may not feel that way.
Right. Yeah, I'm pretty guilty of wanting data in there. Therefore, I put extra fields and things, and I don't necessarily think about how that impacts everybody else. I think of it from myself and hoping it has positive impacts for other people. And as we've grown as a company, I've realized I can't do that.
Yeah, it's like these types of things are good to have like open discussion, right? Like how, because at the end of the day, like I assume like you want fields added for a particular reason, right? It's not, you don't want to add a field because you're interested in adding a field. You're adding a field because you need to accomplish a particular goal to capture particular data.
Right.
And so that's the discussion needs to have, so that the right way of gathering it is achieved, and the right way of storing it and then presenting it. So those three things are important.
I like to think that if it benefits me, it benefits others, but not necessarily. Sometimes it may not be that way. All right, the kind of wrap up here says, how do we ensure adoption is successful?
Yeah, and I mean, we've kind of touched on a little bit of this too. I mean, this is they reiterate kind of recruiting people and outside of sales ops, like I mentioned. But I think it's also important. So they talked about having folks in sales ops shadow. Now, not every company's going to be able to do that just from a staffing perspective. But what they're saying is, like, instead of having the individuals that know how to make it work, go out to the individuals that are putting the information in and see actually how they're working. Mm-hmm. Let me see how they're how are they going and getting to an account record? How are they getting to an opportunity to input data? Where do they do most of their work? Are they on mobile? Do we need more mobile friendly environments? That type of stuff, I think, is what they were explaining in this last section here, just so that you have context into what you're building, and you're not just building in a silo and giving it to a group of people that can probably very quickly realize, okay, this was implemented by somebody that's never done what we do.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely a team approach between the maybe the partner, consultant, as well as the internal team, plus the sales team, all coming together and listening to the sales team and finding out what they needed to do, while also guiding them to what works. And there's going to be plenty of cases where nobody's done this before, but a general idea of how something similar has been successful is really that team approach.
Yeah. And then it becomes like, as I said, then everybody feels like they got a stake in the game, and be kind of, I think that there's probably some sense of pride if you actually brought up in an organization, maybe a better way to do something, and then all of a sudden it got implemented and everybody was using it. Now you've kind of got like a little stamp of your idea in the environment. Like that's the stuff that really, I think, starts to foster really good adoption. and really good use of this. I mean, the other thing is to not underestimate removing clicks, right? If I can get to something with one click as opposed to having to drill in like 13 levels deep to find something, that's a lot. That adds up over the course of a week in somebody that does this stuff day in and day out.
Yeah. How much do you think the ability to get data in and get it clean and keep it clean and then get help from AI tools is going to drive adoption of this stuff that we currently can't drive because we're just, just doing it more the legacy way?
Well, yeah, I mean, and it's interesting you brought that up because follow on, and we'll probably have another discussion here in the future about getting your data clean. But I think that's at the end of the day, I mean, the data that's being put in by the organization still needs to be, you still need to be as accurate and thoughtful as possible. But the AI tools are definitely going to help surface like the red areas, if you will. I mean, obviously, it's easy to dedupe. That's really just pattern matching and whatnot. But tools that help go out and gather like address information or company summary information. Now you've got an account record with rich content that's up to date. That's the other thing. Think about a point in time entry of data. So if you add a bunch of data into your Salesforce org, how often are you going back to make sure it's accurate and updated, right? I mean, how much, if we looked at LinkedIn, right, how we've got folks that we know move from job to job, and LinkedIn kind of keeps them as an individual, and then you see all the companies change. But in Salesforce, they may be 3 or 4 companies old in your org if you don't have a strategy to keep that updated and clean. So that's, I think, those are the areas I think where AI just is really going to actually help take that out of the hands of the individual, because that's really mundane stuff to have to go in there and try to figure out who's left what company and all that good stuff.
Or at the very least, it pops up, you say, yep, hit a button, boom, changes it. So you've got the tool providing insight for the user, and then between the two, they validate. And I mean, if you could just do that like once a week and have the 15 changes that happen,
Yep.
Noted, and just boom, 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 done. Or maybe it's totally automatic. But wow, that I find people all the time that are still associated with us in Salesforce that the job I have them nailed to or tagged to, they haven't had in 3 years.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. And it's the reason this is more top of mind now than it was is because of what you brought up. It's AI, because garbage in, garbage out, right? So if if you put dirty data into a language model or an AI model or what have you, any of these AI tools that we've got, you want that to be a solid foundation. So that's why these are really important topics. Adoption of the environment, which is what we talked about here, keeping data clean. How do you clean it up? Because that could seem very daunting. Like if you got thousands or millions of rows of data, it's like, oh man, how are we even going to possibly get that cleaned up? But it's not as, there are ways to do it, and it's just you just got to sit down and approach it, one step at a time.
So Derek, how many former companies have you worked for that had Salesforce as their CRM? I know of at least one.
Well, all of them.
Yeah. And if you look back now after all the changes, can you kind of see where the opportunity to do it better was? Of course, in hindsight, but at the time maybe you could see it. But nonetheless, there's so much opportunity to change it and make user adoption. It could just be aesthetic, something that was driven versus forced.
I know for a fact that, I've had a couple of positions where I spent time out of my, like I mentioned, right, everybody's busy. I spent time putting a lot of data in, and I never saw it ever. And that is the first way of getting people to just disconnect from what you're trying to do.
For sure. You see it all the time. And, data goes in, never comes out. It was just a waste of your time to put it in.
Yeah.
And then like one of the places you and I both worked at, I mean, the fields didn't even make any sense at all. But it was such a legacy environment. I think that it had moved over from one place over to Salesforce, that one product over to the Salesforce platform, and it really just didn't feel right.
Yep. And that could be a nature of migration. That can also be a nature of a company losing an admin and then another one coming in. So you got one that had one idea and another that has a new one. And, and then so you've got like this legacy stuff that doesn't typically get cleaned up, right? I go into orgs and see, I mean, nothing's really ever cleaned up. I see packages that were installed from, years ago. I see, oh, we don't use that field anymore. All that type of stuff. And, it just creates an environment that's confusing, hard to use, and thus bad data and very low adoption.
Yeah. Well, Derek, what have we not covered as it relates to this blog?
That was it. I mean, this was a fairly short one, but I think that while short, it's a massive topic. I mean, it's a topic that I think everybody that's, currently a customer of Salesforce that's got it implemented needs to at least think about, how can you enhance your adoption, but also make sure that you're getting the buy-in that you need, you're getting accurate data as best you can. And, it starts with the people and like they've said, the message, and make sure that everybody understands the why.
Yeah. Derek, what else is going on in your Salesforce world that you'd want to, tell people about?
Well, I mean, we are building out our practice here at XenTegra. We're starting to connect with companies of the various sizes and various locations, helping with complementary assessments, having discussions on, pain points, you name it. So I'm just excited about that. I'm looking forward to more discussions, getting out there, whiteboarding, solving problems. I mean, it's just going to continue. And, there's so many folks out there that can use just an extra set of eyes or an extra person to vet something off of. And, I love it.
Yeah, partner model. You mentioned assessments, complementary assessments. We have the micro assessment or the Salesforce kind of deep dive assessment. And then we also have the security and risk assessment. I'm of the impression there's a ton of people out there that are not doing a security assessment on their Salesforce environment because they don't think they have to, but they definitely need to.
Yeah, and that one, you put it right. So we do two of them. We have one that's kind of like a health check, right? That's just a very high level state of like a point in time of your Salesforce org, your license consumption, your data, who's using your licenses, do you have any or not, shelfware, stuff like that. And then the security one it addresses the fact that in your CRM, you have your prized possession, right? Which is your customer data. Your customer data is what is at risk of cyber threats. And so because of that, you need to understand your stance in that. Do you have vulnerabilities? Are you at risk of a cyber attack? Are you at risk of exposed data that you weren't aware of? Do you have HIPAA violations? Are you collecting credit card information in your org? And if so, is that protected so that only the people that need to see it can? Things like that, which, we've got some tools and whatnot, and we're partnering up with some third-party tools to help us dig into that so that we can provide back to the customers a snapshot of where they stand with that and then offer actionable remedies to close those holes.
Yeah. Yeah, I wish I could find a way to get that out to more people quicker because I know they need it and they need it like today. Like they don't need to wait on that one, but we'll get it out there. Hopefully people listening will reach out to us and follow up and want to hear about the security. It's free. It costs you nothing. We will find stuff. There will be stuff to fix. You can pay us. We can work with you, or you can do it yourself. But there's lots of opportunities to help people that way.
Absolutely. Yeah. And like I said, so there's the health check button within Salesforce that most, people are probably familiar with that have Salesforce. It'll, and then they give you this nice one-click fix all. I look at that like a magnifying glass into security. The security assessment we do is a microscope into the data.
Right.
So two totally different things, and very, very useful. And yeah, if you're not doing it, hopefully you're aware of your data because exposures are not cheap.
Yeah. Derek, I bet it's less than 1% and probably 1% of that 1% that are actually doing it.
Yeah, I would agree. Yep.
All right, sir. Well, I appreciate you jumping on and covering this topic. We'll do it again in a week or so and cover a new one. Thank you.
Sounds good.